I'm Haley Taylor, and you're listening to the Rough Draft Diaries. This week on the Rough Draft Diaries, we're talking to Dominic, who I think gave the shortest introduction I've ever heard on the show.
This is Dominic Gray, and I'm a drummer.
I mean, it's true, he is a drummer, but he does have some other interests outside of playing the drums.
Drumming is the center of all of these different things that I do. I do a bunch of film work, and I compose music, and I do videos for other people, and all these sorts of things, but it all goes back to drumming. That's the warmth-giving sun of the universe that I have to live in. So I think being into music did it, and drums was just the way in.
Dominic comes from a long line of drummers. His dad, his grandfather, step-grandfather, all drummers. So I think he knew, growing up in Toledo, going to the Toledo School for the Arts, studying music, that drums were going to feature in a large part of his life, describing it as making a life out of music and then eventually making a living out of it. The making a living part happened after high school, when he moved to Chicago for a few years, and then, after working at a theater in Chicago, eventually moved to Berlin.
There was about a 3-month period where I knew I wanted to pursue music full-time, and I was, toying around the idea of traveling or maybe living in Europe. And I didn't really know anybody there, and it wasn't anything specific about Germany, but in my research and finding things, a few opportunities opened up in Berlin, and I just decided to go for it. There was no reason not to.
In Berlin, Dominic worked as a professional musician, performing with different acts who needed drummers, but also forming his own band, All Right Gandhi, and occasionally teaching lessons. One project that Dominic started working on while living in Berlin was called Telesonic 9000. And, well, it's kind of hard to describe.
You put it best, and my mom put it the same way. You kind of have to see it. I can explain it in so many words, but everyone kind of walks away with their own impression of it.
Now, I have seen the show, twice actually, so I guess I could describe it from the audience perspective. Telesonic is like an interactive drum performance. There's a screen that's set up behind a drum set that projects video clips from old, 1950s commercials or archival films. Dominic has collected that footage and edited the film together, with emotion matching the score of the film, which was also written by Dominic and features some fun audio samples.
Man, look at him go.
But the drums to the soundtrack, that's performed live. That's where Dominic comes in.
I call it a film concert. It's really at the intersection between a cinema screening and a show, going to see a band. And I try to have all of the music and visual and sound effect elements and all of that on equal footing so that everything makes sense together.
And it does. Dominic playing live, matching the beats to the score, which matches the images on the screen. They all move together in perfect time. And the images are incredible. Incredibly nostalgic, that is. There's a couple dressed in 50s evening attire dancing around a living room. Then it cuts to a team of men playing football on a field. There's a tutorial on how to use a record player. And during a shot of a couple water skiing, you can hear this jingle in the background.
Beautiful Chrissy has beautiful hair that grows.
These nostalgic scenes and sounds were created with a purpose.
Part of me had this awakening about re-encouraging a sense of optimism and forward thinking and all these things, youthfulness that America had in the mid-century and was very much admired for, that we don't really have as much now. So I thought, as an American performer and creator in Europe, I can hopefully provide some of that energy there. And here in America, where it is local and we're kind of used to this history, perhaps not consciously, but we're aware of it, to re-inspire people to do things constructively and to hopefully have a positive impact on what they want to do, perhaps their immediate environment, their community, their work, artistic or not. There's a big thing about the American identity and the American attitude that is quite casual but also very confident, and all these types of things which, put in the right direction, is world-changing.
Dominic has played the Telesonic 9000 show so many times he's lost count. Like I mentioned earlier, I saw it during one of his visits back home to Toledo. But now he's officially moving back home to Toledo, leaving 5 years in a bustling Berlin behind him. Although he doesn't have any clear plans for the future or for the next project, he has some loose ideas. But I think for the first time in Rough Draft Diaries history, we have an artist that doesn't seem bothered by the uncertainty.
The doubt and insecurity is always there. And if somebody doesn't have it, they're probably not making things of any value. So I try to keep a good attitude, even if it is somehow performative, even just to reinforce in myself, wow, okay, you have to try to create things in as positive as a state as you can, or if you're feeling negative somehow, to channel that and have it come out. It's all, hopefully it can all be constructive. That's the main thing. And then there's the sweat. You have to just do it. You have to go after it. And that's sometimes, you have to decloud your mind about who you want to be and all this sort of stuff. Even the goals you have sometimes have to be set aside just so you can begin the first steps and then realize those goals as time goes on. So I have no formula for it, no thing. Just try to have a good attitude about it, and that's usually enough to get the gears going. And the rest falls into place the way it needs to.
I'm Haley Taylor, and thanks for listening to this episode of the Rough Draft Diaries.